The scorching sun beat down mercilessly as Jake stumbled forward, his parched lips cracking with each labored breath. His water bottle, empty for hours now, dangled uselessly from his fingertips. Through blurred vision, he spotted something shimmering in the distance. A mirage? Or salvation? As darkness began to creep into the edges of his consciousness, he saw it, a sleek silver RV parked beneath the shadow of a mesa. With his last ounce of strength, Jake collapsed against its door, his knuckles barely making a sound as they brushed the metal. The door swung open, revealing a woman silhouetted against the cool interior. "Hop in, wanderer," she said, her voice like cool water in the desert heat. Little did Jake know that this chance encounter would not only save his life but force him to confront the ghosts he'd been running from. And that the woman offering salvation harbored secrets that could either heal or destroy them both. 3 days earlier, Jake Matthews had been just another single father trying to make ends meet in Phoenix. His daughter Emma's 8th birthday was approaching, and he'd promised her the camping trip of a lifetime, just the two of them beneath the stars, away from the apartment that felt emptier each day since her mother's departure 2 years ago. The desert was supposed to be their adventure, not his nightmare. But when their car broke down miles from the nearest town and Emma's asthma suddenly flared up, Jake had made the desperate decision to leave her with a kind family at a rest stop while he sought help. "I'll be back before sunset, Emma Bear," he'd promised, kissing her forehead. "Pinky swear?" she'd asked, her small finger extended. "Pinky swear," he'd replied. That was yesterday. Now, as he collapsed into the cool interior of the RV, that broken promise weighed on him more heavily than the dehydration ravaging his body. "You look like you've been through hell," the woman said, pressing a cold bottle of water into his trembling hands. "Drink slowly." Jake gulped greedily despite her warning, water spilling down his stubbled chin. As his vision cleared, he took in his savior, tall and poised, with alabaster skin that seemed to glow in the dim light of the RV. Her long, silky platinum hair was pulled back in a loose braid, revealing sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of desert sage. She wore hiking boots and cargo pants that somehow accentuated her perfect figure rather than hiding it. "My daughter," Jake managed to croak. "I need to get back to my daughter." The woman's expression shifted. "Where is she?" "Blue Mesa Rest Stop. I left her there when our car broke down. She's sick, asthma, and I went for help, but I got lost, and my phone died, and..." His voice broke. "I'm Alexandra Reeves," she said, already moving toward the driver's seat. "And we're going to find your daughter." The RV's engine roared to life, and Jake felt a surge of hope as they pulled away from the mesa. But as Alexandra navigated the winding desert roads with surprising skill, he couldn't help but wonder what a woman who looked like she belonged in a corporate boardroom was doing alone in the middle of nowhere in a luxury RV. "Thank you," he said, his voice steadier now. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." "Save it," she cut him off, her eyes fixed on the road. "Let's find your daughter first. Then you can thank me." The silence that followed was tense but not uncomfortable. Jake studied her profile, noting the tight set of her jaw and the white-knuckled grip she maintained on the steering wheel. "So," he ventured, "do you make a habit of rescuing stranded dads in the desert, or am I special?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Let's just say I was in the right place at the right time. Or the wrong place at the wrong time, depending on how you look at it," Jake countered, his natural charm resurfacing now that the immediate danger had passed. "Most people's vacation plans don't include picking up half-dead strangers." "Who says I'm on vacation?" Alexandra replied cryptically. Before Jake could press further, the RV crested a hill, and the Blue Mesa Rest Stop came into view. His heart leaped into his throat. "There. That's it." Alexandra pulled into the parking lot, and Jake was out the door before the vehicle had fully stopped. He scanned the area frantically, looking for the family he'd left Emma with, the middle-aged couple with kind eyes and a teenage son who'd promised to watch over her. They were gone. Panic seized him as he ran from one end of the rest stop to the other, calling Emma's name. The few travelers present watched him with concern or suspicion, but none had seen a little girl with curly brown hair and a purple inhaler. "They're gone," he choked out when Alexandra approached. "The family I left her with, they're gone. They took my daughter." Alexandra's expression hardened. "Did you get their names? Phone numbers? Anything?" Jake shook his head, self-loathing washing over him. "Just their first names. They said they were heading to Flagstaff. I was supposed to be back in a few hours. I never thought." "Stop," Alexandra commanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Beating yourself up won't find Emma. Think. What else do you remember about them?" Jake closed his eyes, forcing himself to focus. Their car, it was a blue minivan with a dent in the passenger door. Arizona plates. And the son had a University of Arizona sweatshirt. Alexandra was already pulling out her phone. "I'm calling in some favors. Get back in the RV." As they pulled back onto the highway, Jake watched in bewilderment as Alexandra made a series of calls, speaking with an authority that suggested she was accustomed to giving orders and having them obeyed. Words like Amber Alert and Highway Patrol filtered through his anxiety. "Who are you?" he finally asked when she ended the last call. Alexandra glanced at him, something unreadable flickering in her eyes. "Someone who understands what it's like to lose someone you love." The weight of her words hung in the air between them, and Jake sensed there was more to her story, much more, but before he could ask, her phone rang. "Reeves," she answered sharply. Her expression shifted as she listened, relief washing over her features. "Thank you. We'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up and turned to Jake. "They found them. Emma's safe. The family got worried when you didn't return and took her to the nearest hospital in Winslow." Jake's legs nearly gave out beneath him. "She's okay? Her asthma's stabilized. They're waiting for us." The next 20 minutes were the longest of Jake's life, but when they finally arrived at the small regional hospital and he saw Emma sitting up in bed, her face lighting up at the sight of him, he felt as though his heart might burst. "Daddy," she cried as he gathered her into his arms, burying his face in her curls to hide his tears. "I'm sorry, Emma Bear. I'm so sorry I broke my promise." "It's okay," she whispered. "I knew you'd come back. You always do." Over Emma's shoulder, Jake caught Alexandra watching them from the doorway, her expression a complex mixture of joy and something that looked remarkably like grief. When their eyes met, she quickly turned away. The doctors wanted to keep Emma overnight for observation, and Jake settled into the chair beside her bed, holding her hand as she drifted off to sleep. He expected Alexandra to leave. Their unexpected adventure concluded, but instead, she returned with coffee and sandwiches. "Thought you might be hungry," she said, handing him a paper bag. "You're still here," Jake observed, accepting the food gratefully. Apparently, she replied with a small smile, taking the seat across from him. As Emma slept peacefully between them, Jake and Alexandra talked in hushed tones. He told her about his life in Phoenix, about his job as a high school English teacher, about his ex-wife who had decided motherhood wasn't for her and left when Emma was 6. Alexandra listened, offering neither judgment nor pity, just quiet understanding. "Your turn," Jake said eventually. "What's a woman like you doing alone in the desert in a luxury RV?" Alexandra's gaze drifted to the window, where the desert night stretched endlessly beyond the hospital parking lot. "Running," she admitted. "Or trying to." "From what?" "From everything. From being Alexandra Reeves, CEO of Reeves Technologies. From board meetings and quarterly reports and people who only see what I can do for them." She looked back at him, vulnerability showing through her composed exterior. "From the anniversary of my husband's death." Jake's breath caught. "I'm sorry." 3 years ago, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Cancer. Every year on this date, I disappear. No phone, no email, just me and the open road. Except this year, I made the mistake of checking my messages this morning. The board is threatening to vote me out if I don't return immediately to handle a crisis with our newest product launch. And instead of rushing back, you stopped to help a stranger in the desert, Jake said, understanding dawning. Maybe I needed the distraction, Alexandra replied with a sad smile. Or maybe I just needed to remember that there are more important things than stock prices and market shares. The night deepened around them as they continued to talk, their conversation flowing from serious to light and back again. Jake discovered that beneath Alexandra's polished exterior was a sharp wit that matched his own, and he found himself drawn to her in a way he hadn't been drawn to anyone since before his marriage had fallen apart. So, Mr. English teacher, she teased after he corrected her grammar, do you always pedantically police people's speech, or am I getting special treatment? Only the beautiful ones, he shot back with a grin. It's my unique flirtation technique. Is that what this is? Flirtation? Her eyebrow arched elegantly. I don't know, Jake replied, suddenly serious. What would you call it when two strangers meet in the desert and somehow find themselves sharing their life stories in a hospital room at 2 a.m.? Temporary insanity? Alexandra suggested, but her eyes told a different story. As the night wore on, Alexandra revealed more about her life. She'd built Reeves Technologies from the ground up with her husband, Michael. They'd been college sweethearts who shared a vision of creating sustainable technology that could change the world. When Michael was diagnosed with an aggressive form of pancreatic cancer, they'd faced it together, fighting every step of the way. The last thing he said to me, Alexandra whispered, her fingers absently tracing patterns on the hospital blanket, was that I shouldn't stop living just because he had to. But that's exactly what I did. I threw myself into the company, worked 18-hour days, slept in my office more often than my own bed. I was breathing, but I wasn't living. Jake reached across Emma's sleeping form and took Alexandra's hand. And now? She looked at their intertwined fingers. Now I'm sitting in a hospital room with a man I met in the desert and his daughter, and for the first time in 3 years, I feel present. Morning came too quickly, bringing with it Emma's discharge papers and the reality that their paths had crossed for only the briefest of moments. As they stood in the hospital parking lot beside Alexandra's RV, Jake found himself reluctant to say goodbye. Where will you go now? Alexandra asked as Emma explored the interior of the RV, exclaiming over its many luxurious features. Back to Phoenix, I guess, Jake replied. Our camping trip didn't exactly go as planned. Alexandra hesitated, then said, I'm heading back to San Francisco tomorrow. The board meeting is the day after. She paused. But I have one more day of freedom. And this RV has plenty of room. Jake looked at her, surprised. Are you suggesting that maybe Emma deserves the camping trip she was promised? Alexandra finished. Just not in the middle of nowhere without cell service. The smile that spread across Jake's face was answer enough. That day became one of the most perfect in Jake's memory. They drove to a scenic campground with full hookups for the RV, where Emma could safely explore while still having access to her medications. Alexandra taught Emma how to identify desert plants, while Jake built a small campfire for s'mores as the sun began to set. As Emma roasted marshmallows, Alexandra sat beside Jake on a log, their shoulders barely touching. Thank you for this, he said quietly. You've turned what could have been the worst day of my life into something beautiful. Maybe we both needed saving, she replied, her eyes reflecting the dancing flames. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep in the RV's comfortable guest bed, Jake and Alexandra sat beneath the stars, a comfortable silence between them. Tomorrow you go back to being a CEO, and I go back to being just another overworked teacher, Jake said finally. Is that what you think? That tomorrow we just reset? Alexandra turned to face him, her expression serious. Jake, I don't believe in coincidences. I was supposed to be halfway to San Francisco by now. Instead, I took a detour on a whim, ended up on that specific stretch of desert road at the exact moment you needed help. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe some people come into our lives for a reason. She reached out, her fingers lightly touching his. And maybe some people should stay. The night air seemed to still around them as Jake leaned forward, his hand gently cupping her cheek. Their first kiss was tentative, a question rather than a declaration. When they pulled apart, Alexandra's eyes remained closed for a moment, as if she were memorizing the sensation. I haven't felt this way in a very long time, she admitted when she opened her eyes. Neither have I, Jake replied. And it terrifies me. Why? Because you live in San Francisco, and I live in Phoenix. Because you run a multi-million-dollar company, and I grade essays for a living. Because the last time I let someone in, she walked out and left Emma and me to pick up the pieces. Alexandra took his hands in hers. Those are all valid concerns. But here's what I know, life is unpredictable and often cruelly short. I've spent 3 years hiding from that truth, burying myself in work instead of facing the emptiness. Then I found you, or you found me, in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly I'm remembering what it feels like to want something beyond the next quarter's profits. What exactly are you saying, Alexandra? I'm saying I want to see where this goes. I'm saying that distance and differences don't have to be deal breakers if what we're building is worth the effort. The morning brought with it difficult goodbyes as Jake and Emma prepared to catch a bus back to Phoenix while Alexandra headed towards San Francisco. Emma hugged Alexandra fiercely, extracting a promise that she would visit them soon. As Jake stood before Alexandra one last time, words seemed inadequate. This isn't an ending, she said, as if reading his thoughts. It's a beginning. How can you be so sure? Jake asked, the practical teacher in him questioning the fairy tale. Alexandra smiled, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a business card. Because I'm Alexandra Reeves, and I always get what I want. She pressed the card into his hand. And right now, what I want is to see where this goes. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of long-distance calls, video chats, and text messages that stretched late into the night. Alexandra flew to Phoenix twice, each visit feeling more like coming home than the last. Jake and Emma flew to San Francisco for a long weekend, where Alexandra showed them her world. Not just the gleaming Reeves Technologies headquarters, but her favorite hidden bookstore, the small Italian restaurant where she and Michael had celebrated their anniversaries, the quiet beach where she went to think. It wasn't always easy. Alexandra's board of directors raised eyebrows at her suddenly more balanced schedule. Jake's ex-wife reappeared briefly, curious about the new woman in her daughter's life. There were missed calls due to time zone confusion, arguments born of stress and distance, moments of doubt when the obstacles seemed insurmountable. But there were beautiful moments too, Emma's face lighting up when she spotted Alexandra waiting outside her school, surprising Jake. Alexandra's laughter during their midnight phone calls. The way Jake's students noticed their teacher seemed happier, more present. The gradual healing that came as Alexandra began to speak of Michael not with raw grief but with fond remembrance, and as Jake learned to trust that not everyone leaves. 4 months into their relationship, Alexandra faced her biggest professional challenge yet. A competitor had launched a smear campaign against Reeves Technologies' newest sustainable energy initiative, claiming their technology was flawed and potentially dangerous. The company's stock plummeted, and the board was in panic mode. I need to focus on this, she told Jake during a tense phone call. I might not be able to call for a few days. Do what you need to do, Jake assured her. We'll be here when you come up for air. 3 days of silence followed, during which Jake tried not to worry. On the 4th day, as he was grading papers in his living room, there was a knock at his door. When he opened it, Alexandra stood there, looking exhausted but determined. "What are you doing here?" he asked, stunned. "The crisis is being handled," she finished, stepping inside. "By my extremely competent executive team, who reminded me that I've spent 3 years trying to do everything myself when I don't have to." Jake pulled her into his arms, feeling the tension in her shoulders. "Are you okay?" "No," she admitted. "I'm tired. I'm worried about the company. I miss Michael every day." She pulled back to look at him. "But I'm also happier than I've been in years, and I realized something important during those 3 days of crisis management." "What's that?" "That I don't want to live in San Francisco while you and Emma are in Phoenix. I don't want to schedule our relationship around business trips and school breaks. I want—" She hesitated, suddenly uncertain. "I want a life with you. Both of you." Jake stared at her, speechless. "Alexandra, your company can be run from anywhere. We have offices in Phoenix. I can split my time, work remotely, fly back when necessary." She took a deep breath. "Unless I'm misreading this. Unless this isn't what you want." Before Jake could respond, Emma appeared in the hallway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. When she saw Alexandra, she let out a squeal of delight and launched herself into the woman's arms. "You came back," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around Alexandra's neck. "I did," Alexandra replied, her eyes never leaving Jake's. "I was hoping I could stay." Later that night, after Emma had fallen asleep, Jake and Alexandra sat on his small balcony, the desert night spread out before them. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked. "It's a big change." Alexandra took his hand. "When Michael died, I thought that was it for me. One great love in a lifetime seemed more than most people get. I never expected to find you." She smiled. "Or rather, I never expected you to find me, collapsed against my RV in the middle of nowhere." "Best wrong turn I ever took," Jake said with a grin. "The point is," Alexandra continued, "I've spent too much time playing it safe, hiding behind work and grief. I don't want to waste any more time." "Neither do I," Jake said, pulling her close. "So what happens now?" "Now," Alexandra said, "we figure it out together. Day by day." The transition wasn't seamless. Alexandra rented an apartment in Phoenix while maintaining her home in San Francisco. She restructured Reeves Technologies to allow for more remote work, promoting trusted lieutenants and delegating responsibilities she'd previously insisted on handling personally. Jake adjusted to dating a woman whose face occasionally appeared on business magazines, whose schedule sometimes required last-minute flights across the country. But they made it work. Alexandra found unexpected joy in helping Emma with science projects and attending school plays. Jake discovered he had a talent for helping Alexandra unwind after stressful board meetings, for making her laugh when corporate politics became too much. They built a life in the spaces between their differences, finding strength in the very things that might have kept them apart. 6 months later, as Jake stood on the balcony of Alexandra's San Francisco apartment, watching Emma and Alexandra plant flowers in the rooftop garden, he marveled at how life could change in an instant. The desert that had nearly claimed his life had instead given him a new one filled with possibilities he'd never dared to imagine. Alexandra caught him watching and smiled, the sun turning her hair to silver. She whispered something to Emma, who giggled and nodded enthusiastically. Together, they approached Jake, Alexandra's expression suddenly nervous. "Emma and I have been talking," she said, taking his hand. "About the future." "Oh?" Jake raised an eyebrow, trying to read her expression. "We think," Alexandra continued, glancing at Emma, who was practically vibrating with excitement, "that it might be time to make this arrangement more permanent." "What exactly are you proposing?" Jake asked, his heart racing. Alexandra's smile widened. "That's exactly what I'm doing. Proposing. She dropped to one knee, still holding his hand. Jake Matthews, I never thought I'd find love again, especially not in the middle of the desert. But you and Emma have become my home, my heart, my family. Will you marry me? Emma bounced on her toes. Say yes, Daddy. Say yes. Jake laughed, pulling Alexandra to her feet and into his arms. Yes, he whispered against her lips. 1,000 times, yes. In that moment, Jake knew with absolute certainty that sometimes, you have to get lost to find your way home. And as he held Alexandra and Emma in his arms, the San Francisco skyline stretching out before them, he was grateful for wrong turns, broken down cars, and the beautiful stranger who had opened her RV door and said, "Hop in, wanderer." Because sometimes, the most unexpected journeys lead to the most perfect destinations. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys that remind us of the unexpected ways love finds us. We'd love to know. What country are you watching from? Share in the comments below.